Yesterday, 7 states held their primary elections, and while the results are still being processed and analyzed, the results in one state so far have stood out: California, which saw the overwhelmingly Democratic electorates of Los Angeles and San Francisco, and you know, they're 2 of the most liberal cities in America. Well, they spoke out very loudly, and the left, I don't think they like what they heard. Here to talk about some of the surprising results from the deep blue state of California is Jonathan Keller. He's the president of the California Family Council. Jonathan, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Hey, Tony, it's great to be with you. I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but you know, California is such a big state. The 4-hour drive was a little bit too much today.
Believe me, I know how big it is. I thought it was like driving through another state one time, and I drove from top to bottom. It took me forever. All right, let's start off with San Francisco, where the DA was ousted. Tell us about the significance of this.
Well, Tony, this is the DA, District Attorney Chesa Boudin, and he was elected as part of George Soros' huge progressive prosecutor project several years ago. And I know George Soros is a kind of a name that gets thrown around as a bogeyman in conservative circles from time to time. But in this case, there's no denying this. He actually was trying city by city, and in some cases state by state, to try to elect prosecutors to do that what he could not get done at the ballot box or in the state house. Rather than actually changing laws, rather than decriminalizing things like marijuana possession or prostitution or all sorts of other crimes, he decided to go and have a version of nullification led by these progressive prosecutors. If you can't actually change the laws, you'll just instead decide to not enforce them. And that's exactly what we saw from Mr. Boudin over the last several years. And as you said, even for the deep, deep blue city of San Francisco, one of the most progressive, one of the most, I mean, tragically, even though it's named after St. Francis of Assisi, one of currently the most godless cities, I think, in the country, this was even a bridge too far for them. They looked at the skyrocketing property crime. They looked at the automobile thefts that were off the charts. They looked at the homelessness, the drug use. I mean, Tony, large parts of the city are basically one open air drug den. And they decided finally, we cannot go on living like this. Tony, I have a good friend who's a progressive woman. She's a researcher for Stanford University, not exactly a bastion of conservatism. Even she and her family moved out of San Francisco because they were finding used drug needles in their kids' sandboxes at the local playgrounds. I mean, it was at the point where it was totally untenable. And I hope that Democrats and other would-be progressive prosecutors around the country take note of what happened to Mr. Boudin.
I mean, you mentioned this godlessness. Well, that godlessness that's been there for decades has resulted in lawlessness. And it is. It's one of the, I mean, it's just, I've been by, I've driven by, I've not gone in and stayed there lately in the last decade. But it is the homelessness, the drugs, it's horrible. So alarm bells should be going off for Democrats, because this is an issue of law and order. It's an issue of safety. I mean, when you combine that with the economy, they're not doing so well.
No, and California obviously has some of the highest gas prices in the nation. Tony, I was actually back at a conference in Nashville just last week, and looking around at the gas prices in the mid $4, I was thinking, oh my goodness, what I would give to have those prices in California. I don't think I have filled up my tank for anything less than $5 in months. And I've even seen some friends down in your current stomping grounds down there in Orange County, they are paying $6 a gallon, even $7 a gallon.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. Before we run out of time, a Texas state representative announced over the weekend that he was going to introduce legislation banning drag queen shows that have children in the audience as a result of something that happened in Houston. Well, you have a state senator here, Scott Wiener, who is now proposing to put this into curriculum in K-12s. And I mean, I would take this guy at his word, because, I mean, he's actually authorized and authored legislation that has decriminalized sex offenders and making them not have to file for the registry, and it's now in law. So this guy, you need to take him at his word.
You know, Tony, I wish I could say Senator Wiener, I wish that I could say that he was just being a troll. He is very active on Twitter. He does like to poke fun at anything that is conservative, anything that even has a whiff of Christianity. He really mocks and belittles. But in this case, I think you're right. I wish that we could just say that this was him being kind of a jerk. But sadly, he is one of only 40 elected state senators in the state of California. He has an incredible amount of power. Right now, Tony, he has another bill that's going through that would authorize 12-year-olds to consent to vaccinations on school campuses without parental consent or notification. That could be COVID vaccines, that could be HPV vaccines. I mean, this is the level of disdain that many elected officials in California have for parental rights and for people of faith.
Well, Jonathan Keller, thank you for what you do here in the state of California. We're grateful for your leadership, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Tony. Always good to be with you.